Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 20 of Superannuated Starman. My name is Sean Ryan, and I am your host. I'll be joined by Chris Duerksen
As always.
and Cory Braucks.
Yes, I'm alive.
So, we are all either sick or getting over being sick, so please bear with us. We have a great show for you, and we really, really want to talk about this game. But for you guys, do you guys have any plans for the new year? It's December 2023 is right around the corner. What do you guys have going on?
Trying not to be sick.
Trying to not be sick.
Yeah, just trying to survive it.
I will admit, there's a few podcasts I listen to, and whenever the host is sick and I'm listening to it, I'm always like, oh God, I'm going to get sick. So, anybody listening to this, I apologize in advance. I will do my best not to sound sick.
Yeah, if you're a hypochondriac, we are sorry. We are not trying to get in your head right now.
I am.
Like-
You're going to have a common cold.
But like I said, 2023 is right around the corner, and that's a big year for video games, or rather, it's a big year for video game anniversaries. Tons of amazing games came out in 1993 and 1998. So 2023 will celebrate the 30th and 25th anniversaries, respectively, for dozens of amazing titles. And to kick off those celebrations, we're going to start a little early and discuss our memories of Gunstar Heroes for the Sega Genesis. So stick around, and when we come back, we'll dive into the history of this amazing game. Developed by Treasure and published by Sega, Gunstar Heroes was released worldwide in September of 1993 for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive, and published on the Game Gear in Japan in 1995, on the Nintendo 3DS as a part of the Sega 3D Classics collection in 2015. The development for Gunstar Heroes began in 1991 with several of Konami's employees, amongst them Masato Magawa, a programmer. He began holding meetings at coffee shops and began to work on an original title. They started fleshing out ideas for a shooting game, something that they were all familiar with, and they pitched their idea to Konami, but they were told it wouldn't sell and the pitch was rejected. Frustrated with the industry's reliance on sequels of established franchises and a desire to work on original content, Magawa and his team left Konami and founded Treasure in June of 1992. Magawa wanted to develop their games for the Sega Genesis and approached Sega for a publishing contract. When they first presented their idea to Sega, they weren't granted approval because they lacked a proven track record. Instead, Sega contracted Treasure to begin work on McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure. Several months into development of Treasure Land, Sega granted approval to work on their original game. Treasure worked on both games in parallel and released Gunstar Heroes worldwide as their first game in 1993. A break from the history for a moment. Cory, it's going to be the 30th anniversary of McDonald's Treasure Land Adventure next year, and we're going to have a better time to discuss this game because you've brought it up so many times
Oh yeah.
in conversation.
So we're getting into this later, but I have really no history with this Gunstar Heroes game. And when I launched it, I saw that the logo for the developer was Treasure, and I'm like, that logo looks really super familiar. And I looked into it and I was like, oh, McDonald's. And then I was super hyped. And I found out they were released like not only in the same year, but like 2 weeks apart. So it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's actually some really interesting history on that I'm going to hit on, and we will be discussing Treasureland at some point over the next year. So back to that development, Treasure consisted of 18 people at the time, split roughly in half to work on both projects. The core team behind Gunstar Heroes consisted of 6 people. That was 2 programmers, 2 graphic designers, and 2 sound programmers. Can
Wait,
you
that was all of it?
that was the whole team. The other 12 people were working on McDonald's Treasureland.
And do we know how long it took them to crank this out? You said the company was founded when?
They were founded in June of 1992 and development lasted around 10 months.
Wow, so they've banged out 2 games in 10 months with a team of like 18 people total.
Yeah, it was the team's first time programming for the
That's
Genesis
wild.
because they were coming off of previously programming Contra 3, The Alien Wars for Super Nintendo
Another
while they worked at
excellent
Konami.
title.
It's an amazing title. They chose the Sega because the team felt that the Genesis processor was more powerful, more capable, and friendlier to experimentation than other consoles. And I'll admit, when I read that, the 10-year-old me, the 10-year-old fanboy in me, took a punch to the gut because I was 100% on the Nintendo side in the console wars.
But Nintendo's better.
They're both amazing systems, but the more I read about it, and in fact, there's a book called Console Wars by Blake Harris. They really kind of go into it, and it does seem like the Sega or the Sega Genesis. When I say Sega, I'm talking about that. It seems like the Genesis was the easier system to work for.
Well, from what I understand, the Genesis was a little more powerful, correct?
I mean, defining powerful is
Like in
Kinda
terms
difficult.
of processing power, like because Nintendo they had to do everything everything was done in the cartridges. Like we were talking about how like Castlevania had like the chips in it and everything else, right? And Sega was kind of the core system that did it.
well, yes and no. Instead of having expansions like Sega did with the Sega CD and the Sega 32X, Nintendo went the route of putting that all on the cart itself.
Right. Okay.
And that's why some carts were crazy more expensive than others.
Yes,
Well,
because of those chips.
and I guess the other issue I think Nintendo still does this is that I don't think it's very easy to develop for them because everything's kind of like first party as far as I know.
Sure. I mean, there definitely has to be some problem, not maybe problem's not the right word, but some difficulties in working with Nintendo because they do keep everything so close to the
Right,
chest.
like you have to like get permission from them and then you have to get like their development kit sent to you and everything as far as I know. And then it's just really not the same thing with like Xbox or PlayStation or computer. Like you could just bang out your own game on the computer and then shop it around, right? And as far as Nintendo goes, like you have to have like, you know, a conversation with them before they'll let you develop for them.
And then you have to get the tools, and then you can start playing with stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Hmm.
my understanding. I know next to nothing about how development actually works, and I would love to talk to another developer. We talked to the developer for Maniac Mansion, but he was working on PC,
And he
and
had
that
all kinds of cool toys from LucasArts.
yeah, and this was also at that time the 1980s, so things have
Right.
definitely progressed in the years. So moving on with the development, the team was able to implement a heavy visual effects in an exercise in design and experimentation. There were limitations, however, as the Genesis could only display 64 colors on a screen at once. The team placed an extra effort on coloring to compensate, so the early backgrounds were drawn with a 16 color palette, but it didn't quite meet the team's standards, and instead, 2 palettes with 32 colors were used. The team also used programming tricks to make scenery appear to be composed of 2 to 3 to even 4 layers, although the Genesis can only support 2. So there was a lot of visual trickery going on.
One thing I did notice, I love the backgrounds in this game, just because
Oh, yeah, they're
the,
so highly detailed, and
yeah,
we'll talk about that a lot in a
yeah.
little bit. The game itself started under the working title Lunatic Gunstar, thinking lunatic was a good description for the game's hectic and frenzied gameplay. But Sega of America felt the word held some negative connotation, so rejected the title. Blade Gunner was also suggested as an homage to Blade Runner, but the name was rejected because of copyright restrictions. Sega of America suggested the Heroes, and so Gunstar Heroes became the final title. Back to Treasureland, Treasureland was actually completed first, and Treasure decided to wait and release Gunstar Heroes as their debut title because they wanted that to be what the face of Treasure was.
Yeah,
They didn't want it to be McDonald's. I
I'd
wonder
be kind
why.
of bummed to be like, oh yeah, my first IP was something for McDonald's here.
It is kind of ironic that they split from Konami because they were upset with sequels and non-original ideas, and really their second game was an IP of of Ronald McDonald of all things.
Hey man, you
Yeah.
gotta get your bread buttered somewhere.
Yeah, you gotta get paid somehow. Gotta keep those doors open.
Well, it worked. So although
Yeah.
the game was complete, oh, go ahead.
I know. I was just yeah, based on how much Pickle loves that game. Sorry, Corey
An
loves that game.
excellent title.
I've
Can't
never
wait to
played it.
discuss it.
I've seen speedruns of it, and it was unreal. So
That's gonna be like first quarter next year. Gonna celebrate them 30 years.
absolutely, man. You just let us know when you want to do it, and we'll do it. Gunstar Heroes was nearly rejected in North America, and it received an extremely small print run. And in Japan, the print run was only 10,000 units. Sega of America eventually opted for a print run of their own, and the game was released with practically no promotion and information largely spread through word of mouth. The game shipped approximately 70,000 copies in Japan and 200,000 overseas.
Which is not a lot.
Not a lot at all.
Because I read somewhere else the same year. Because didn't Aladdin come out the same year?
Yes, it did.
And I think like I could be wrong on this, but didn't Aladdin sell like 9 million copies their first year, and this only sold 200,000?
I don't know. That's definitely a game that we're going to review because there's two different versions of it. So I don't know which one sold how much.
But still, like
I mean,
200.
I think Aladdin had much more promotion behind it than
Oh
Gunstar
yeah, for
Heroes,
sure. Well, yeah,
you
and
know?
that's what he was saying, and that's what I was going off because he was saying how this game had no promotion, it was pretty much spread word of mouth, and the sales unfortunately kind of showed that, which is unfortunate. I mean, like this, as we're going to be talking about, like this is a great game.
Well, despite how little it sold and really how little was shipped, the game was received extremely well and is praised for its fast and furious action. EGM, or Electronic Gaming Monthly, called it, quote, one of the most intense carts to date with nonstop intensity from beginning to end.
Oh
And
yeah, I would agree with that.
if you're looking to play this game today, as I mentioned, it's available on the 3DS as a Sega 3D Classic. And I'm not going to rant about it, but time is running out on the 3DS eShop. On
Get in
March,
there, people. Nintendo's gonna cut you off
it is going away. This is the only way to experience Gunstar Heroes in 3D.
legally.
Well, really, how else are you going to experience it?
Oh, in 3D, I suppose.
Yeah, you need that. You need your 3DS. So you need some Nintendo hardware at least. The game is also one of the 42 games available on the Sega Mini Console. You can also find it on the Sega Genesis Classics collection that's available on Steam, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the Nintendo Switch. It's also available. Go ahead.
I'm sorry to derail things. Can I just go on a tirade for a moment about these mini consoles?
Do it.
Dear developers, stop it. Like, stop with the artificial scarcity of making these like limited run consoles and then charging me $1 billion for them. And then I have to pay twice $1 billion on eBay because you only made 40,000 units. And you know full well that we're all going to sell. Just give me them and let them be out there forever and let them be as plentiful as any other system. Or just put them on an eShop and let me have them and quit canceling your eShops, Nintendo. All right, that's all I want to say.
Can you put some audience applause in there during that segment?
Yeah, I'll make it happen. So, Corey, were you trying to get your hands on a Sega Mini?
No, but I mean, like, I've had enough Sega games to last me the rest of my life. But like, it's just when the first like the NES Mini came out, like I couldn't get it, and then the SNES Mini, I like tracked it for like a month and a half before I finally got my hands on it. And it's just like these games are not. They're all done first of all, and it's very little effort for them to put them together, and they put one printing out because they know that artificial scarcity will sell. It's like what Disney does with the Vault, where they're like, get it now on DVD before we put it back in the locker, and you guys won't be able to get it for another 30 years, and you won't be able to show your kids The Little Mermaid. Like, screw you. Just release it and let me have it. Like, it'll sell, okay?
You're not wrong. And talking about the eShop, it is available through the Nintendo Switch NSO expansion pack. So you have to pay extra on top of having Nintendo Switch Online.
Which, I mean, kind of sucks, but at the same time, at least it's there. Like I'm willing to pay the extra $8 or whatever it is if I have the option. It's just such BS to be like, oh yeah, well, we only made 500,000 units, and we know that the average title nowadays sells like 8 million, but we made a 16th of that because we know that you're all going to try to kill each other for them right before Christmas to buy them all. Like, you guys suck. Quit it.
We're still on that tangent, but I absolutely sat in long lines to get my
Yeah,
hands on
exactly. And they're
the
always right
NES
before the
and the
holidays.
SNES. They are. They are. But I think that's going to wrap up this history segment. So let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to hear from Corey and his memories, or maybe lack thereof. So enjoy some more music from Gunstar Heroes. Welcome back, everybody. So I said Corey was going to start us off, but Chris, what memories do you have of this game, or do you even have any?
Absolutely none. And this is not the first game where I haven't had any experience, but the other games where I haven't had experience, I've heard of the games. I remember seeing advertisements for them. I remember them being around. This game, it's noteworthy to say, like, I don't remember this game ever existing. I had no idea this game was around. I didn't know anybody that had it. I don't remember seeing it in comic book ads or magazines. I don't remember seeing it being promoted in stores. And the only reason why I want to make mention of that is just because the fact that playing it now, which I mean I know we'll talk about in a little bit, was so great. Like this game, like playing this game now makes me wish I would have had a Sega and this game as a kid, because this game was great. And yeah, just the fact that I never even heard of this game kind of makes me feel like I was living in a closet. But like you said, it wasn't promoted or anything. So
It definitely wasn't promoted. Corey, what are your thoughts?
All right, picture it. 1994. You're a small lad. You open up your Christmas present because it's the holiday rush, and you play McDonald's Treasureland Adventure because you've never heard of Gunstar Heroes in your life. And then you find out that Treasure made another game. It's called Gunstar Heroes, and it's a lot of fun. And you've never heard of it before, and it's never been mentioned before, and you've never even seen it in like the odd article on IGN before. And yeah, I'm with Chris on this one. I don't know about Sean, but I honestly never ever heard of this title. I don't know
And
its existence. I don't know, like, there's like a sequel to this too, isn't there? Like, but it's wild that no one talks about this because it is, in my opinion, a little bit groundbreaking. We'll discuss that later, but it's pretty wild title, and yeah, I've never heard of it before in my life until like I don't know a month ago when Sean's like, yeah, we should really play this. So here we are.
I'm trying to pull up the McDonald's Treasureland Adventure manual to see if there's anything in there talking about.
Oh, I should go get mine out of the attic.
yeah, and since that game and this game were put out at the same time by the same company, by the same kind of the same team that was split in half, it's like the two games are brother and sister.
Yeah,
I
like we
guess.
mentioned, they came out like again, you're weird, but we did mention they came out like 13 days apart, so it's pretty insane.
They're almost
So
twins.
I'm looking at the manual right now, and the very last page is a flyer or an ad for Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine.
Mm.
I know that title. That's a great title.
There's probably a good chance that part of the agreement with Sega was that they had to put an ad in the back of this manual.
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I mean, you would think that you would also put another page in there promoting
Promoting
your
your
own
own
game.
game. Yeah.
Nope,
You're
I
a
mean,
brand new company.
it's
You
just one of
just
those things where you don't know if they even had any control over that.
Yeah. I mean, Sega could have
That's
been one
true.
printing the manuals.
Yeah, we don't know exactly what
Have
the
had a
contract
different
looked like.
Yeah, could have had a different publisher, like
I
a
mean,
publishing company make the
that
manuals.
was made by Joe's Manual Corporation. They just gave them all the private information.
Well, guys, I didn't own this as a kid. I didn't rent this game as a kid. I also didn't know anybody that had this game as a kid.
Welcome to
wasn't-
Superannuated Starman, where we talk about childhood classics we've never played before.
It wasn't until I started getting into emulation that I experienced this title. And I've mentioned him a few times before, but my friend John Thompson, he introduced this game to me via emulation when I was a teenager, and I thought it was incredibly badass.
That's
Right off
totally
the bat.
that sounds totally like a game John would have thrown right at you.
Yeah, he was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of this game?" And I was like, "No, what's it about?" And he's like, let me just show you." And he pulls it up on the computer, and we don't condone piracy, but we'd be liars if we said we didn't
All right,
do it
here's the
when we were
thing.
young.
Piracy is bad, and you should always pay people for their work because it's important that people receive recognition and so they can continue to make games. But guess what? When they don't let you get those games, you got to get them somewhere.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I've bought this game several times now, so my conscience is clear as far as I'm concerned.
And
But
and to be fair, I mean, and the age of piracy that you're talking about back then, I mean, we were still school kids, and everybody like the son
everybody
was
was doing it.
yeah, everybody had these
Every-
ROMs everywhere.
Napster was just in court for it.
Napster wasn't even around yet. I don't even know how we
Napster
got
was
these
around.
ROMs. No. Like seriously,
No,
like
not
when
then.
yeah, when Sean and I were first like playing and we all had Nesticle and stuff like that. I don't even know how we got the ROMs. They were just they're
There.
kind of it was kind of like Doom. They were just on every computer.
Napster was made in June 1st of 1999.
Yeah, this we were talking. This is pre Napster.
In 1999, Chris and I were in ninth grade. We were freshmen in
Yeah,
high
so
Yeah.
if you're
school.
talking about high school, that's
Yeah, but
Napster.
yeah, but I mean I don't know about you, Sean, but I mean I remember playing stuff on Nesticle and stuff before high school.
Yeah, in junior
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's seriously like church computers had Nesticle, the school computers had Nesticle. Like
And
every you
the
go to
school had
everybody's
it
house,
because
everybody
John
had
put it on there.
Yeah, I'm sure John. Yeah, I'm sure John spread it everywhere he could. John was also the same person that put Quake on the school network. That was
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you, John.
I
Yeah,
mean,
he really hooked us up.
a lot of these were just the fact that there was no anti-piracy, so you could literally just put a CD into your drive and you
What are
could
you
just
talking about?
rip it.
CD? These were on.
Okay,
We
but
all
okay, floppy
floppies.
disk or whatever. Like you could just, I mean, I remember we had TIE Fighter on floppy disk. You could just put it in your computer and you could just rip it directly onto the hard drive, and then you had a permanent copy.
Oh man, the good old days.
Everything
Listen,
was
there,
so simple.
Yeah, this is the real superannuated Starman where we talk about all the
all
And
the
we don't.
all
crimes
the
we've
the
committed.
questionable
We're,
things.
yeah, and we're not trying to. We're not admitting to anything here. This is all artistic expression.
Ah.
Come at me, Microsoft. I've paid for plenty of your crap so far.
But
Well,
that's what I was doing when I was a teenager. I was emulating this game, and right off the bat, that spinning logo of Gunstar Heroes, even as a kid, that screamed quality to me. And
Right?
I know this may sound dumb, but this was at a time in my life that I was really getting excited about how things worked. And, that naive, like, I want to be a video game developer when I grow up. Obviously, I didn't do that, but I wanted to understand how this worked because that looked like nothing else I'd seen before at that time, at least on a console.
Yeah, I was gonna say that little spinning logo reminded me of like arcade games that you knew would be good. That was the kind of spinning logo you're like, ooh, that's worth a quarter.
Yeah, that attract screen that just
Uh-huh.
really grabbed you. And this absolutely did that. And so I was excited to get into it. And when the gameplay starts, the action is immediate. Enemies coming
Right.
at you from
Oh my
all
gosh,
over the
yeah.
screen. They're exploding when you kill them. I remember being grabbed by an enemy and I just kind of like left my controller alone for a second because I thought I was going to get hit and then I could go back to what I was doing. But I distinctly remember John yelling, "Do something." And that's when I hit, I don't remember what button I hit, but then I threw the bad guy. And I was just my mind was blown because I was like, I'm shooting a gun, but I'm also throwing the enemy. It was just so crazy to me that there was this combination of like Mega Man and Contra and Double Dragon and the Ninja Turtles. It was just this melting pot of ideas. And I was just so hooked that I had to play this game more. And I played it to death. Absolutely to death.
and to just piggyback quickly on what Chris mentioned about arcades is, I'm really surprised we never saw this in an arcade.
Right. I know. Wouldn't
Because
this been the best
this
arcade game
is
ever?
this is such because it's a very short title. It's only got like 4 stages, and it's just very fast paced, and it's very much a just crazy,
Go, 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 go,
like,
go, go,
yeah,
go.
it's just an adrenaline shot, right?
Yeah.
And like if you have two people, like you can juggle enemies and there's just bullets flying everywhere and it's just a wild ride, and it's really surprising that something like
This
this that easily could take a quarter and give you 15 minutes of entertainment while you're like waiting for your movie to start or whatever. Like
Or
this
if they
was
had
not.
it on
Yeah,
extra difficulty, it give you 15 seconds of
yeah,
entertainment.
exactly. Like, but it's
Yeah.
just it's something wild, like where it's like, how did this never make it into
What?
like
Yeah. This would have been
arcades?
that's the what I was thinking the whole time. Like this would have been an amazing cabinet game. Like, oh man.
that thought never crossed my mind, but now that I'm hearing it from both of you, I am shocked that it did not exist like that.
Yeah, you'd think that, after seeing the finished product, they would have ported it over because this really screams for like a joystick.
Yeah.
And it does have some arcade elements. In the top left-hand corner of the screen is the little score meter or
Yeah,
score count.
there's the scores and there's like, and I mean like it's 8-way directionality, so it's just you can be going everywhere, and it should have been an arcade game.
And the co-op
Yeah.
mode.
Oh man, yeah. Wow, God. I
Yeah.
cannot believe I
They
now
missed
now
they missed a lot of easy lob pitches on this game. Not
Treasure,
promoting it. Yeah.
treasure, get in a time machine, call us.
Yeah. Take us with you. We'll help you fix this.
Yeah, it's
Because
unfortunate the arcades are just dead now. They don't exist.
Home consoles, baby.
And the Dreamcast is probably the beginning of the end for arcades, at least in America. Oh man. But
I
this
think the death of malls is really what killed
yeah,
arcade.
that too.
That was the final nail.
Well, I don't have really much more to talk about my childhood with this game. Do you guys have anything else you want to mention before we
no,
move on?
Nope.
I'm looking forward to talking about playing it. So
All
let's
right.
go.
Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be discussing our playthrough of Gunstar Heroes today in the end of 2022. First, Chris is going to kind of recap the difference between the storyline for the North American release and the Japanese release.
Alrighty. So the Japanese, which is the official storyline, the much more involved storyline, was talking. You got the I don't know, the Gunstar. What do you call it? The Gunstars. It's basically like a team of heroes destined to protect Earth. So we have the evil robot. The world was like coming to an end. Some evil organization created the ultimate weapon called Gold and Silver, which is we will find out is the final boss of the game. But the Gold and Silver to destroy countless cities on Earth from the moon. The Gunstars, seeing the Earth turn into a living hell before them, and fueled by righteous anger, confronted the powerful Gold and Silver. After a long battle, they defeated the robot boss, and to make sure it was never came back, they sealed its body on the moon and took the 4 power gems and then sealed them away on separate areas of Earth. That completely exhausted the Gunstar organization, and then they put themselves into a cryogenic sleep to await a new civilization to come along. Except, I don't know. The Japanese story goes on. I didn't. None of us played the Japanese versions, right?
Oh yes, of course. I translated it, and no one played the Japanese.
Anyways,
So I
Japanese
played the 3DS version, and
Is
you
that the
can.
Japanese version?
Okay, so you can either play the American release or the Japanese release. They're both
Now,
in
is
TFC.
it translated or is it actually in Japanese?
Didn't play it.
Oh,
I just know that you can do that.
oh, okay.
Anyways, the
that's
reason I
interesting.
wanted to mention the Japanese story is because I had the Japanese storyline was this big, long, intricate storyline that had lots of plot twists and whatever. And then the rest of the world storyline is a dumb, simple storyline of, hey, you got goofy bad guys that are trying to put a bad robot together, and you stop them. And that's
Yeah,
literally
because I
there.
couldn't follow any of that, what you were just talking about.
Yeah, maybe if we actually played
No,
the Japanese
wait,
version.
but that's not right. That's not right. So in the North American release, it's not bad guys creating a robot. The Gold and Silver still traveled millions of miles to suck out all the Earth's resources, but it's not Earth in the North American release. It's a planet called G9.
Right, but I mean, like, did you gather any of that from the game? Like playing the game
No,
itself,
absolutely
you're
not.
like, it's like you have like corny Power Ranger level bad guys, and and I think are the bad guys collecting the power? Yeah, the bad guys have the power gems, right?
Yes. Did you read the manual?
No, I did not read the. Oh God, no, I didn't read the manual.
See, guys, okay, so there's
Gotta read that manual.
in the manual, it talks about the Gunstar family has been the protector of the planet Gunstar 9, or G9, for generations. Professor White Gunstar, in his youth, defeated the evil robot, the Gold and Silver. And years later, a new menace has risen to now resurrect Gold and Silver, and that's Colonel Red. He
Who
found
looks
out,
like M Bison?
yes, he looks just like
Yeah.
M. Bison.
Okay, first of all, you ruined my joke, Chris. Second of all, counter argument. If this were on an arcade, I wouldn't have a manual to read. So they need to put
Bingo.
it together.
But
They
they would
probably
have
would
had
have
some
had a better
sweet.
a track screen.
It would have with the splash thing where it's like insert quarter. It would have told us about it.
Exactly.
Or on the sides of the cabinet would have some awesome mural showing the story of
Supposed
everything.
to intuit everything from
Yeah.
like damn hieroglyphs.
Well, Colonel Red discovers that the Gunstars know the location of the gems. And so he kidnaps Gunstar Green, which is the older brother to the Gunstar twins, Red and Blue, that you
So
play as.
that's how he becomes bad. I had
Yes.
because when you're
So-
playing it and you beat him, he's like, I got to make up for this, and I'm like, who are you? I don't even know who you are. Like,
Gunstar Green is the older brother to the other Gunstars. There's four Gunstars. Gunstar Green, which is the oldest, Red and Blue, which are the twin brothers, and Gunstar Yellow, which is the sister.
and the sister is the one that gets kidnapped. The green one gets mind
Yes,
controlled, or
correct. They kidnap him and brainwash him into working for the evil empire.
and red and blue are player 1 and player 2.
Correct. It's all in the manual. I'm just saying.
You didn't have the manual when John Thompson told you to play it.
I did not. I looked it up for this playthrough.
Yeah, and you probably never read it before this playthrough too, have you?
Not once.
I'm
Yeah,
just saying.
You're just like, this game is crazy good.
I just made
Lasers.
I made a half-ass effort to tell the difference between the Japanese storyline and then how much they phoned it in our storyline.
It absolutely is phoned in for the North American release. You're not wrong. You're absolutely correct.
I think that plays to the bigger issue that we just don't care.
We like explosions and fast-paced firefights.
Yeah, nobody's coming back to this game for its stellar storyline.
No, not at all.
But with the storyline out of the way, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say with the storyline out of the way, let's talk about the gameplay.
Well, the game starts off, and you're allowed to select one of 4 different weapon types at the stage select screen. And those are Force, which fires rapidly to a point, Lightning, which fires through enemies, Chaser, which follows enemies, and lastly, Fire, which is very effective in close combat. You can also mix and match those skills. So you select one of the 4 types, and throughout the game, there are certain power-ups that will drop, and you can either double up on a power, or you can select a different one to create a brand new effect.
And man, when we first started playing this and the little weapon select screen, first off, I was super sick and I had like the brain fog you get when you're sick. So like all this was just I was overthinking everything, and I even messaged you. I'm like, which one do I need to start with? Like, oh my god, this is so crazy. Is it going to be this intense this whole game? Like, I found out. I don't know about you guys, but like it doesn't matter which one you start with because you can switch them up 50 times throughout the game.
Yep.
Also, further argument that this should have been an arcade game is the fact that your partner could have a completely different weapon layout than you.
Oh man, yeah, that would have been great. I wish I would have played this co-op so bad.
Me too. I didn't play this co-op at all. I played it on my 3DS, so there really wasn't much of a way.
What if
But-
there's an online co-op?
I was really tempted to make Gibson play it with me, but he's 6. That wouldn't have been fun
Can't
for
handle
anybody.
his dad losing his mind about lasers.
Just do something.
Well, after you choose your weapon, now it comes time for the level select screen. And like Chris and Corey have said, this is a very short game. There's only a handful of levels, and the first three that you can select from, you can choose any of them in any order. So it's very similar to Mega Man, how you can kind of choose which stage you want to battle through. And all of the difficulty level for those first three stages is pretty even across the board.
I
That
know.
way,
I was terrified I was going to pick the wrong one, and after a couple playthroughs, I was like, it really doesn't matter which one you pick.
it really doesn't.
It's not like Mega Man where you have to like get the right powers in the right order and defeat the right bosses in the
I
right
mean,
order. And
we've had this conversation as well. Even in Mega Man, like there's leeway there.
yeah, but there is definitely a right and a right path and
I don't know.
There's an
easy path
There's
and
an
hard path.
easier way for sure.
I
Whereas this
wouldn't
game,
say easy. I would say an optimal path
A way
in
where
Mega
you
Man.
don't have
right?
to rerun anything, I guess, would be the way
Yeah,
to put it.
but yeah, I was expecting like, especially when you have a level select and a bot, basically a stage select. To me, that just screams, oh, there's going to be there's going to be something that interacts with on this stage with this other stage, and in this game, there's none of that. Like this
Some
would
puns
also,
just like letting you pick from your levels, man.
yeah. So this also would have been perfect for an arcade cabinet on that alone as well.
The first level that shows up, the one that's on the very far left, is the ancient ruins. That's probably what most of us picked.
Yeah. I just did the left from right every time. As soon as I figured out it doesn't matter, I just went left to right.
And this level is broken up into several areas. You have the first being this village area. There's these huts. You end up destroying everything around you. Corey, why don't you tell us about the combat in the game?
Okay. This game is a massive laser fest. It's a side scroller, and basically you are jumping around and you are shooting everything as monsters continuously fly at you and bad guys come out with guns, and like everything is exploding around you, and it's just it the best way I could describe it is that this was like a first generation bullet hell where it's just everything is going on the screen at once and you're just trying to cope with it, and it's just a very explodey, chaotic laser fest.
So
And
oh, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
just to build off that, I played the Sega release for this. I didn't have any screen lag at all through this entire game.
Yeah, it was very well optimized.
Yeah,
That's a good point because there's so much going on. It would
So
not
much.
be surprising. And we cannot explain how much is happening on the screen. There are constantly enemies coming at you. They're exploding. There's explosions because of it.
Yeah, like picture like Gradius and just scale it up by 10 and then also add in the fact that you can shoot upwards and downwards like Contra.
Absolutely. And not to mention that, but not only can you shoot, you can leap at your enemies and do like a belly flop in the air, which will damage them on the way down. You can slide attack into enemies. If you come up on them, you can grapple them and throw them at other enemies.
Yeah, so
you
you
can
you
jump off
can
walls.
and I did watch a little
Yeah.
bit of like people playing co-op with this. Like you can juggle enemies. Like so, if you put somebody in a
Oh,
grapple,
that'd
like
be so
you
cool.
can throw them to your friends, and your friends can catch them, and you can juggle them in the air basically, and
I
continuously
watched.
shoot them as you juggle them.
You can
So
throw your friend
yeah,
as a
you
weapon.
can throw your friend. Well, you can propel them forward. Is
Yeah,
the thing. Once again, where this is where my mind is going, where it's like, how did this not make it to an arcade? Because it's so co-op friendly.
Yeah, like this game was made for co-op.
Like this
As
was
as
made.
as
Yeah, this was made for
as
a friend.
as fun as the single player experience was for me, I wish 10 times more I would have had a co-op person to play with,
Well,
because this
just
game is
sock it in a drawer, and like 2 years, just grab your kid and be like, "I'm going to introduce you to lasers."
dude, I'm not even kidding at all. I'm totally planning on making my nephews play this with me when I see them for the holidays.
I hope you do. And our next game that we cover, bring it up. Just it doesn't matter if it's out of context. I want to hear the follow
Yeah,
up to
just tell
this.
us about it after
Well,
it happens.
it'll be sometime in January. So
That's fine. Not a big deal. But back to the level itself, that first area is a village. And once you finish fighting all the enemies, your first mini boss is a giant piece of asparagus sticking out of the
yeah,
ground
right.
that spawns giant caterpillars. So it
Does it
that
spawn caterpillar? I don't.
it does.
I
So
kill the thing so fast every time that I don't remember
So,
anything.
really quick, another thing I want to point out here, this is the only game I can think of where there's no health bar for the boss. It is just a number in the top middle of the screen, and it
yeah.
just counts down as you shoot them in the face. Like
And I
it's
use that so many times as
yeah,
I'm like, oh, okay, I'm using that as a countdown timer until they're dead,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. But like because it'll stop counting if you stop shooting them. So it's
Hmm.
literally just it's their hit points represented with like a digit instead of a shiny
Yeah,
bar.
starting at 5,000 or
Yeah,
10,000 or whatever.
it's wild. It's like the only time I've ever seen that.
That's a great observation. Like I said, I played this game when I was younger, so it wasn't anything new to me. It was just how it is. After you beat the giant asparagus boss, you now have to ascend to the top of a
Please,
pyramid,
Mr. Asparagus.
Mr. Asparagus, and at the top of the pyramid is another mini boss. But this is a polygonal man made out of 3D boxes. And he's
Another crazy, like he's the Amazon Prime robot.
Yes, he's
yeah,
the as Aztec Prime. Yeah,
Yeah, he's Prime Bot is what he is. Like they just threw a living cardboard box at us, and he dies about as fast as that.
unless he heals.
he can heal?
Yes, if you don't kill him fast enough,
Oh,
That's news
he
for
heals,
me.
and he heals to full.
I didn't know that. So I've beat that boss very, very quickly.
I
But
did too
I
the first time. And it depends on what weapons you have, because some of the weapons, some enemies are resistant to weapon types than others, and I think I noticed, like, for the overall, like the tracking bullets or whatever you want to call them, the
the
tracer ones.
chaser.
That
Yeah,
blue laser does wonders.
yes, the blue laser does do wonders. But the chaser ones, the little green arrows, right? They are green
Yeah,
arrows, right? Yeah,
yeah.
they actually they track your enemies, but they seem to do about half as much damage as
They're very
everything
weak.
else. Yes, they're very weak. And the first time I noticed that this boss regenerates is when I was using the tracer ones, and I just couldn't kill him fast enough. And he was able to he does a little heal thing, and he completely heals himself.
So this is as good a time as any. What weapon combinations did you guys find to be the most effective, or what did you use the most?
I used the blue laser and the fireball thing.
What does that
I
combination make?
Uh, a blue laser fire.
So as cheesy as it sounds, I kind of found doubling up on a single type gave me the best results. Um, when I wanted to cheese my way through the game twice, two different times, I cheesed my way through the game with the double chaser, and it literally just destroys everything, and you don't even have to aim. Made the game a lot easier. Oh, we didn't even talk about the what kind of shooting mode, because this game not only do you pick your what your starting weapon, but you also have to pick your shooting mode in this game. Whereas you can either run and shoot at the same time, or you're basically you're running in the direction that you're shooting, or every time that you are not running, or you can only shoot when you're not running, which makes the game, for me, that made the game way
Oh,
harder.
I did the running and shoot mechanic. That's for
Yeah,
like
run and gun.
Contra.
Yeah, I tried the other the 8 directional shooting thing where you couldn't run and shoot at the same time. It made this game impossible. Like I never beat it within that mode because I don't like
There's too much going on.
Yeah, in this game, like part of advancing in this game is realizing, oh, I can't kill everything on the screen at the same time and just keep moving forward.
And
And
you leave behind a lot of opponents.
yeah, and with man, the 8 directional shooting was like, I was like, oh, this will help in the boss fight. So I tried it out, and yeah, for the boss fights where you have one thing to target, and a lot of times I had hard time doing like directional shots on bosses in the on the run and gun mode. It made it a lot easier for boss fights for that, but getting to the boss was so hard just because you just can't clear the stage if you're not moving. It is anytime you stop moving, you are taking damage.
So you mentioned doubling up on the chaser to make it easy or cheesy, like you said.
Yeah,
I found that the best cheese is the chaser and lightning.
that was oh yeah, it makes a little square thing that
Yes. You
yeah.
get this little reticle that will just instantly track all over the screen. The only downside to it is that occasionally it'll get caught up on indestructible objects. Like there's sandbags
Yeah.
that you can't destroy. And there's other things in the level, but that's what just comes to mind. And you have to let go momentarily and press fire again.
I
But
let it reset. Yeah.
yeah, but it will just immediately track and stick to whatever it is on and not stop until you let
Well,
off that button.
It's got that aim assist for you.
One cool thing about
Yeah.
the double chaser is that if you hold down the trigger the whole time, if there's no enemies on screen, the chasers just circle around you, kind of like a thorn aura in other games, and you're just surrounded, and your bullets flying around you, and then as soon as an enemy comes in, they all just fly at the enemy.
I did not know that. I
It
always
was a
let
lot of
go.
fun.
I guess I played a lot more straightforward because the blue and orange combo, like the fire lightning or whatever, it's just a very like rapid, like forward attack, and it's probably a good like third of the screen for like length or whatever it is. But it is just like a big laser beam that continuously bursts out of your hand. So
Did you ever use the double laser?
no, I didn't. This is
That
kind of like what I was going with.
the
I picked my gun. I stuck with it.
the double laser is super cool because um and also we should mention that not only the weapon system, you can get one type or another, or you can combine them using there's using the A button. You can like say for example, one of your gun slots is filled with electric, the other one's filled with fire. You can use specifically just the lightning, specifically the fire, or the combination of the both. So there's basically 3 different gun modes you can use while you have your 2 different power ups, and that's what plays with the combination. It's a lot of fun. But if you have double lightning, double electric, and you use both of them at the same time, it basically just makes a laser beam of doom that literally melts everything that it touches. So much damage.
One interesting thing about the 3DS version is that you can play co-op with yourself, essentially, where you can switch back and forth between red or blue. And so you can have an entirely different weapon setup.
What does the character do when you're not using it?
Is it just like Tails where it just follows you around?
No, he just doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
You
So
literally
like
just
that hot swap sort of thing.
exactly.
Okay. It's Marvel versus Capcom.
So after you beat the Amazon box man, the pyramid explodes, and now you're on this downhill slope. Now, we've talked about a lot of cheese. If you just push left and go all the way back, you'll disappear off the screen, and enemies will appear, but they can't hit you.
I
And
did not do that.
All you have to do is just hold left for that entire segment, and then eventually you'll slide to the base.
I just held my trigger in the direction of top left and just melted everybody as they came on screen and jumped over the occasional
A lot of
fire.
this was just like kill as many people as possible while running.
One thing that is important to mention here, or is interesting to mention really, is that there's the enemies that are coming on screen are just this kind of faceless minion, but they have so much personality. And you'll see that throughout the game. And in this section, when they are appearing on the downhill slope of the pyramid, some of them are literally falling. They're just tumbling around over and over
Yeah.
again. So there's this really good comedic aspect to this game as well.
And by the way, all the bad guys that we're talking about, pretty sure those are they kind of borrowed from Mega Man, and they're all reprogrammed
They're
assistant bots.
robots.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all robots. They were all assembly bots that have been reprogrammed to try to kill you,
Yeah, and
kind of like Mega Man.
I think robots is an easy thing to fall back on when you're looking for like a PG rating because like you don't want to murder people.
Oh, exactly.
Well, that's also a big deal in Europe. So the game Contra in Europe is not called Contra. It's called Probotector.
Provo, yeah.
And your two main characters, the red and blue guy in Contra here, are instead swapped out with robots.
Wow, really? They completely like reskinned them.
100%.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. Also, another thing, kind of back to the art style. Did anyone else get a very like late '80s, early '90s like anime vibe
Anime,
from this
yeah,
whole
yeah,
game?
totally,
Yeah,
totally.
like everything is very much a episode of Gundam Wing right now. It's crazy, man.
So I want to finish out this section and then I'm going to bring something up. So don't let me forget that anime style.
Okay.
Once you get to the bottom of the pyramid, you have a small section where you're back in the village slash a jungle section, and then you roll up on the first boss. And if you've ever played Earthbound, this boss reminds me of Porky's Spider Mech, and it's essentially this boss, a couple bosses that are inside of a mech that is just stomping around back and forth and firing a chain gun at you.
Now was the mech, because the section that you run through right before them, there's like the little logging arms. Like you're running through what I gather as like kind of like the Amazon, because you just got done running through like running down an Aztec pyramid, right? And you're down in the jungles, the rainforest area of somewhere, I don't know, south.
Yes,
Of
and you're talking about those metallic arms that will just
Right.
appear. Yeah,
and appear through the tree. I assume, is that like some logging company mech that the bosses hop into? Because
I always assumed that it was that the boss itself, just one of his limbs coming out of the trees to try to attack you.
and that's why I kind of figured it's kind of like a precursor to the boss fight. But yeah,
Yeah.
when you get to the boss fight, they're these two dopes in a big old, I don't know, logging mech, or a big old mech with these claws and big long legs and
and a gun.
oh yeah, laser gun. And
The
Yeah,
Gunstar of heroes.
this is the first boss where you can really, this is the first boss where you really just cheese down. You just hop up on a leg and just shoot him right in the face.
But eventually the boss goes down, and now we can go back to that level select screen.
Oh, and most importantly, you defeat the boss and you get the first little gem, one of 4 power gems, power crystals.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. So you collect your first gem, and then it's back to the screen.
Yep. And this is what advances the story.
So what I wanted to mention earlier, when you were talking about that anime aspect, the North American releases always get screwed on the box art. Take a second to look at the Japanese box art, the Japanese Mega Drive. It's what you expect on the cover of a anime Blu-ray or DVD or VHS back in the day. It looks so cool compared to what we got in North America, which is just
Yes, that's much more. That's an episode of Gundam Wing Jr.
Oh my god, yeah, totally.
yeah, it looks so good. It has all the characters and all the enemies on it. And instead, the North American release, you have red and blue firing at some robots with one of the.
It is
the
a Mega
bosses in the
Man
background.
knockoff. Yeah.
It looks bad. It's not as bad as Mega Man 1 on the NES, but it is not a good box art by any means.
No.
So now we move into the next level if we're going left to right, and that's the underground mine. And as the name suggests, you're in an underground mine shaft. And this is an auto-scroller level where you're in a minecart, but the twist here is that there's
It's a
anti-gravity
special
technology.
minecart.
So this anti-gravity technology is given to us by Dr. Brown, and he's the person that you see at that level select screen. If you hit the jump button twice, you will jump up once and then again to flip around, and you'll attach to the ceiling. And now there's enemies coming at you from the top and bottom. Not to mention that right after you start the level, only a couple minutes into it, you immediately take a hard 90-degree turn down.
And then you're going from wall to wall, going down. Yeah, this
Yeah.
was a fun level.
And
I
it's
am a sucker for any
auto-scrolling.
level where, yeah, I'm a sucker for any level where you're in a mine cart.
It's definitely one of the fun ways to do it. If you're going to have an auto scroller, do it like that.
Yeah, that was fun.
So this is where we see one of the titular villains for the first time, and his name is Smash Daisaku.
And Bison.
He's I think he is Colonel Red, or maybe it's not even confirmed. I'm not 100% sure because there was definitely some translation errors, and there's just the storyline is pretty sloppy, honestly.
You know, I'm really just glad he found something to do after the World Fighting Championship ended.
He needed something.
But yes, he is the guy that we referred to earlier. He looks like M Bison.
He is
mini-
M Bison. This is
Yeah.
alternate universe M Bison. He's literally
Yes.
the same character.
There's a section where there's a train that will come into view, and that's where you see him, and he has his minions on the train, and at one point the train catches on fire.
And all the minions are comically freaking out.
Yeah, they all have
And
their
Raul Julia says, "For me, it was a Tuesday."
they all have their arms over their head, and they're just running back and forth, kind of the chicken with its head cut off.
I swear, isn't one of them just standing in one spot with both hands on its head, just screaming? Like,
I think so.
Yeah, it's got both hands on its head. Like the classic, like Home Alone yelling in the mirror kind of scream, like, and the other ones are just like running back and forth while the train's on fire. Yeah, and this is the first level where you get to know his personality because he's just the a-hole sending them to their death, just yelling at them while they die.
Yeah, he does not care. And if they're robots, it's less of a moral problem, but he doesn't care about his minions.
But they do have fleshy faces, which is kind of disturbing. They're like,
apparently they have fear.
Yeah, lots of fear. They're kind of like, oh my gosh, I never even put this together. They are like a cartoony anime, like a late 80s anime version of RoboCop. They all have robot bodies and like that.
I don't
fleshy...
think that's accurate. Have you seen RoboCop recently?
No, like skinny, goofy, like a goofy.
No, just visually, you mean?
Yeah, but I mean, like,
back to the game. At the very end of the auto-scrolling portion, and not even at the end, but you will get to a part where there's no longer any enemies, but you are met with what I think is the best boss in the entire game, Seven Force. Seven Force is named so because the boss has 7 forms. However, if you play on easy, you only get 3. If you play on normal, you get 5. If you play on expert, you face all 7 forms.
I did not play on expert at all. I never even tried.
Oh, that explains the name.
I did not. So he will always start out in the form that is called Soldier Force. It's this large robot that looks like this humanoid form.
This is a name you got from the internet, I assume?
Yeah.
Okay, because there's nowhere that is labeled Soldier Force.
It does.
Where does it?
It does. So you know how when there's a boss battle?
Yeah.
And it will list off the boss that you fight.
And it lists all of his moves. His moveset.
Yes, and it goes through all 7 of his forms.
Okay.
And so it will always start off with Soldier Force, but the next either 2 or 4 or 6, depending on what difficulty level you played on, the next forms will be in a random order.
That's really cool, because that is like, if you're playing through again, you'll have a different experience if you're not playing on expert. Well, even if you are playing on expert, you'll have a different experience because it'll be in a different order.
No, they're the same order. Aren't they the same order?
No, you said they're random.
Oh, they're random? Oh, cool.
Yep, it's random.
Now, one thing that we should mention, we were talking about, red, blue, and yellow.
Another great series. Did you pick Charmander or Squirtle?
No. But green, your brainwashed brother, is the pilot of this shape-shifting robot.
Seven Force. Yes.
Yes.
And that comes into play in the story later on.
Yes. But this was a fun fight because, and even in the middle of this fight, because you start off going horizontally, in your options are be on the floor or the ceiling. And then when you switch to, I don't know, the big one that you go 90 degrees and then all of a sudden you're going down a shaft and you have left wall or right wall. And one of his forces is, I don't know, I don't even know how to describe it. A big bird? I don't know. And then you have to switch and you basically have to travel around him, avoiding being touched by him. And does he also go like kind of swirl or something? I can't remember. But
Yeah,
you
so
have to
one of his forms, it's like a long tail that will just
it's
whip
got like a
around.
scorpion tail. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to jump from side to side and go up and down, like climbing the wall left and right to avoid him. So you're basically having to rotate around him in order to not get hit. And he follows you around, trying to chase you off the walls. And this was a fun fight.
Like I said, it's my favorite boss in the entire game.
And it's probably the longest boss fight too, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. Because of how many different forms you have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because basically each form is basically a new boss.
But you defeat him, you obtain another gem, and then you're on to the next stage. And the last stage here is called On the Battleship. And the level starts off with an airship blasting off, and you have to climb the screen all the way to the top. And it's probably the least interesting stage for me. There's just not a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean the only thing that they added different was the boxes that you had to blow up to climb over, kind of.
Yeah.
It basically like it added a destructible wall that you were stuck behind, and you had to keep the bad guys off of you while blowing up this wall in order to move forward.
Yeah, you get to the top and you just go right, and there's some walls that you must destroy. There's some enemies, but there's not a whole lot going on. And then you run into Smash again, and you get kind of a fake out where you think that he might be the boss of the stage, but instead you end up fighting Orange. And Orange is the very large, muscular guy that you fight on top of the... Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, if anybody, he's on the cover art of the North American one. He's the big, muscular, plane walking guy.
Yeah, so he's kind of a boring boss. There's not, like I said, there's not a whole lot going on in this level. You got anything, Cory?
Not really. I think you guys have covered most of it.
Yeah, you defeat Orange. The airship explodes. You make this very long fall to the ground where you see Orange sticking out of the concrete in a very comical
because you
style.
knocked him off. Yeah, because you knocked him off the plane. He's also very expressive during the fight, and he's flexing his big muscles. I thought he was funny. Easy fight, but he's a very good example of the comicness of this game.
Yeah, they add a lot of comedy in here. You get your third gem, and then it's on to the next stage. This stage is called the Strange Fortress. And you're going from what might be the most boring stage to the most interesting one. And in the Strange Fortress, you start off battling some minions, and it's kind of normal starting off, but then you enter the building and you are immediately shown what looks like a game board, like you'd see at a board game. There are 19 squares starting from start. They go all the way to boss, with most of the squares labeled as fight, where you must face off with a mini boss or maybe a puzzle that you have to solve.
And they are weird.
They're very weird. And a die will drop from the top of the screen, and you can grab it like you do enemies, and you can throw it like you would playing any type of board game
Yeah, to roll the dice.
to roll the
Which
die.
did your guys' number correlate to how many spaces you actually moved? Because I'd roll a 3 and I'd go 1 spot, or I'd roll a 1 and I go 3 spots. Like that die, I think was just for show.
No, I think mine worked.
No, mine definitely moved the number of corresponding numbers.
Maybe mine was just glitched. And the highest I ever got was a 3. I never rolled anything higher than a 3.
I don't think it goes up past a 3.
Okay.
I mean, it's a 6-sided die, but I think it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, there's only 19 squares, so they want you to experience as much as you can. And again, this is a really interesting way to do a level because it adds some replayability to it.
Yeah,
Now,
there's
wasn't the
this whole
story-
like random reroll factor?
No, it wasn't the kind of story of this particular section is because you're going through like the little factory or like what's the main stage called? Like the
It's called the Strange Fortress.
right. So I think this section is supposed to be like a simulation combat trainer.
Maybe. Again, I don't really know what's going on.
I mean, you shoot monsters. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. You
Kill
throw
a
the
giant
die,
amoeba.
you kill enemies, you move around the game board, and you can get all the way to the very end. Right before the end, you can end up getting set back to square one, unfortunately.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah, but
Did that
anything
occur to you, Chris?
yeah, anything you previously cleared stayed cleared.
They do. I did not know that.
Oh, that's
Yes.
nice.
So
Okay,
so it wasn't so it wasn't
at
so
least
bad.
if you
But
land on the
I
same spot.
literally I've literally cleared every single square on that board before making it out of there.
Ooh.
Which isn't bad because there's also power up ones in there too, where you get heart refills.
Yeah, there are some free squares. So once you get to the boss square, you face off against the Black Beat Stepper. And again, it's this mech that you fight. Not super exciting. I think the level is probably the most exciting thing that's happening here.
Now, which one? I can't remember. Oh wait, yeah. It kind of looked like the very first boss, right? Except he throws out dice, and depending on what the dice shows is what attack he uses.
Yeah, he looks very similar to that first mech that you saw.
Yeah.
So you
And
collect your last gem. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say. I mean, that's a kind of a cool way to. There was no pattern. Like as far as I could tell, there's no pattern to this boss. Like you literally had to pay attention to the dice, and then the dice would blink what attack is coming, and then you basically had and the walls correlated with the side of the dice, so you could get out of the way of what was about to activate on the walls.
Yeah, it's just a random pattern, I think, with the die itself.
And I thought that's kind of cool. Like each section does switch it up and keep you on your toes and keep it fresh. It's they crammed a lot into this little game. Very awesome.
They absolutely do. And we said it's not very long because that was the 4th stage. And when you beat it, you get your last gem, the 4th gem that you need. And now you have to save your sister, Gunstar Yellow.
Because she got kidnapped while you were gone.
She's kidnapped, and we rush across rooftops with the city skyline in the background.
Which is so great.
There's tons of enemies coming at all angles. They're throwing bombs. There's drones flying and shooting lasers at us. The level is very exciting. There's wave after wave of enemy that we face off. And then we have our proper showdown with Colonel Red or Smash Daisaku.
And Bison.
And he has 2 phases. One where he flies around the stage and hurls bombs at you. And after you finish that stage, he's stuck on the ground and he attacks you with these go-go gadget legs that will fly out at you. And he'll also shoot fireballs at you.
Fun fact, after you beat him, if you leave it on the clear stage screen, it'll actually go doo 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 doo. It does it. That'd be really fun.
After you defeat him, after defeating him, he says that he will never die and he rushes off to his boss, General Gray. Unfortunately, he's got your sister. Smash is pointing a gun at the back of her head and threatens to kill her unless you hand over the 4 gems that you just collected. Reluctantly, you do so, but
I
you
wouldn't even
rescue
say
your
it's
sister.
reluctantly. He just do it right away. He's like, okay.
Well, I mean,
I
you
mean,
don't
you're
want,
reluctant to doom mankind or whatever.
yeah, you don't want to hand this over, but you have to save your sister.
Totally.
After that, she's rescued. We move on to the stage called the Empire Spacecraft. Out of nowhere, the game is now a shmup, a shoot 'em up, a side-scrolling shooter from outer space where you are inside a spacecraft,
This
and
is the weirdest transition.
it
It
is
was.
so
It was
weird.
so cool, but also so weird. I wasn't expecting it. And the fact that they changed the control scheme really threw me off.
It's completely unexpected, but it's really fun.
And the way that they transitioned the controls from before, we're talking about how like you basically shot in the direction you're running, or you had to stand still and you could shoot in all 8 directions. When this, you had to move in the direction that you wanted your gun to aim towards, and then once you started firing, your gun locked into that position. So if you wanted to shoot to the right of the screen, you had to push right, which moved your ship right, and then but it also moved your gun
It feels a bit more like
right.
asteroids at this point.
Yeah, and it was so weird. And then basically, and I just held down the trigger the entire time, so that way my gun wasn't moving. Because anytime I'd stop pulling on the trigger, my gun would always end up shooting in some goofy angle that I did not want it to, because I was trying to avoid getting hit by lasers, or in this, there were actual asteroids that you had to avoid. So
It's much easier if you're playing 2-player co-op, because if you do that, a small gun turret will form near the ship and it can rotate 360 degrees around your ship. It looks like a little red ball with a magnet attached to it, but it's indestructible.
yeah, and it acts as a shield as well.
Exactly, it acts as a shield. And in this stage, you encounter a mini boss called Timeron. A message pops up that says, "How long can you last?" Now,
Oh yeah, that was cool.
you can kill the boss immediately if you want.
Which I did the first time. and then I saw bonus 0. I was like, oh, oops, I did that wrong.
What you are supposed to do is you are supposed to avoid its attacks and see how long you can last before you have to kill the boss, or surviving for 100 minutes.
Seriously, 100 minutes?
100 minutes. So
That's too many minutes.
the
I
attack
got
starts
bored
off.
after 30 seconds.
It starts off very simplistic and the bullets are very slow, but they become much more complex patterns. They fire much faster. And if you survive all 100 minutes, a message pops up that says, "You open the Satori mine." I looked into this because I was like, what the hell does that mean? That means nothing to me. So you open the Satori mine. Satori is a Buddhist term for the state of enlightenment or comprehension and understanding. So
You
my
become the pacifist wizard master? Is that what
yeah,
happens?
my
Okay.
guess is that it's just a cheeky way of saying that you have such extreme patience that you put up with this for an hour and a half.
Jesus. The whole game doesn't even take that long to beat.
It does not.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
But if you do manage to do that, you get a bonus of 930,410 points,
Which mean nothing.
which mean nothing. And the words give up will flash before Timeron explodes. Now, I did not do this myself. I looked this up and it's on YouTube. I did not watch the whole thing. I just started it and then
And then
moved
skip to the end.
all the way to the end
Yeah.
because I could not sit through an hour and a half of that. But at the very end, you refight Seven Force, and this time he only has one life bar or countdown rather, but he will again change between his various forms. In the previous fight with him, each of those forms had its own life bar that you had to fight through.
My favorite was always when he switched to the handgun because that was just the easiest to avoid. And you could just light him up the whole time.
You know, I remember that from a kid, but I don't think I experienced that in any of my playthroughs that I did just recently.
Yeah, he turns. And what I'm talking about for everybody who doesn't have a visual, he literally one of his forms because yeah, he's got the shape changing robot that goes from like a running robot like the NFL football guy to a big eagle with a scorpion tail to a big crab thing, or he turns into a handgun. Like literally a handgun, and you even know when he's going to fire because you can see the pistol cocking back before it shoots, and it's so easy to avoid. And it's just a big floating handgun. That's it.
After defeating Seven Force, we move on to the final assault. And this level starts with the spaceship crashing to the surface of the moon. And after a brief battle with these blue minions, we charge through a corridor and start another boss battle. And this room reminds me of one of the bosses in Star Fox, if you guys remember that.
Yes, I was thinking the exact same thing.
At least it starts off that way, but after you defeat the core, you now see a giant robot come running out of the side. And I was like, holy crap, this is going to be crazy. But unfortunately, it's kind of lame and there's not a whole lot to it.
Is this the like final stage we're talking about here?
No, this is the you're on a platform, and in the background there's a kind of or think of like the center of the Death Star.
Oh, okay, so it's got that weird red cord in the background. Or
Right.
whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
the
right.
level is called the final assault, but
Right.
it's not actually the final assault.
You're in the middle of the Death Star, and this thing
Gotcha.
is circling around, and
Yep, I know what you're talking about now.
yeah, and that was a fun fight.
After you defeat that robot, the perspective shifts a little bit. And instead of looking directly at the screen as you would, you're now looking at a computer monitor.
This
with,
was the coolest thing, in my opinion.
yeah,
Yes,
it
so
really,
funny.
it,
Mystery
it was
Science Theater.
it was another perspective. And you see General Gray with his subordinates staring at this monitor, and your brother
Watching you.
Gunstar Green is over in the corner just kind of sulking, and you have to defeat these bosses again one after the other as you progress through this level.
Yeah, it's kind of the Mega Man boss rush, but like you're like Dr. Wily's in the front row basically, and he's just watching you beat up all of his friends, and you're like on TV. It's pretty fun.
Totally reminds me of Mystery Science Theater 3000, where you're watching a movie from this
You're watching
view.
the watching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Very
you're watching the
Roadhouse
watching.
Christmas.
And they're all just sitting in the front row watching you, hoping that you fail. And each boss, like, they're basically in the dugout waiting to take their turn to go up to bat. And as each one, like, as you beat one, the next one gets ready, like flexes or gets ready or pumps himself up, and then walks off the screen. And then the boss shows up to fight you. It's funny.
So we talked about Orange earlier. He's that muscular guy. He just kind of nonchalantly comes in like, all right, it's my turn. I'll finish this. Obviously, you beat him and you go on to fight your brother Green again for the last time. And this is where you gain entry into the control room where the gems that you had to hand over earlier are floating around General Gray. And you think to yourself, okay, now you're going to have to fight Gray. He's the main boss. But instead, all of those gems fire a beam directly at him, basically frying him on the spot.
Blow him away.
I do
To
love
the
the
next
transition. Oh, sorry. I do love
Go-
the
no, hit
transition
it,
though,
hit it.
like where you're on the screen, right? And then you go through like the final go door and then you pop out in the room and it's like, oh, okay, that's really clever.
It was so clever and so unique, and I had never seen anything like that at the time. And I can't even think of many examples up to this point. It was just really well done.
Yeah, like they really took a lot of like visual liberties with this game that I think are really creative and well thought out. And it was just a really fun title in general.
Absolutely. And now we're at the final boss. Those orbs are rotating, or excuse me, those gems are rotating around the final boss, Golden Silver. With the words on the screen, here comes the climax. And we already talked about the backstory to this. So, Golden Silver was a robot that was there to either destroy the Earth or the analogous planet Gunstar
Yeah,
9 or G9.
it's unclear, but he's a bad guy, so it's okay.
And he's like the. Sorry, I'm back. My battery's died, but I'm back.
Oh,
He looks
welcome
like
back.
he looks like the T9000 with a with an 80s wig.
T9000 with an 80s wig and like a gold paint job.
Yeah, he he's the T9000 Eddie Van Halen.
Sir, it's the T1000.
Whatever,
I-
T1000.
To me, I thought he was just kind of a lame C3PO.
There you go. Yeah,
He's
he's
C3. Who's the? It's not Bowie. Who's the other like really skinny? Iggy Pop. Is that what I'm thinking of? Like with
yeah.
Yeah, the hair.
Yeah, it's just like
Yeah.
he looks like he's got a drug habit. Like it's just.
Yeah,
Yes.
Dude, that's
the
we're
boss,
fighting a
Meth
robotic
head
Iggy
robot
Pop.
boss.
Yeah, the boss is not menacing looking at all, but you cannot harm the boss itself. Instead, you have to shoot at the gems that are floating in the middle of the screen. And the boss will do these dash attacks at you. They're very easy to maneuver. It's not difficult, but the gems themselves will start to fire at you
Yeah.
with their ability.
And in traditional Japanese video game fashion, the final boss has 9999 health.
Of course, he has to be maxed out. But once defeated, each of those gems shatter and Gold and Silver actually flies off. And you chase him in your spaceship and you're treated to a short cutscene where General Gray and his minions attempt to stop Gold Silver, but they are immediately defeated again. Your brother Green, no longer under the mind control, takes 7 Force and makes a kamikaze bombing directly into Gold and Silver. And that's it. Roll
Yeah,
credits.
and in the game, this is the first time where, like, if you did not read the manual, I had no idea who this guy was, but all of a sudden he's making this heroic move, and
Oh yeah, we're getting this backstory. You're just
yeah,
like,
and
"No!"
now all of a sudden this guy that you've beat 3 different times, and he's been a pain in your butt. All of a sudden he's like, I gotta make this right. I'm gonna stop him. And your guys, and I was just thinking, oh, okay, I don't care. And then, but you're the good guys were like, no, don't do it. I'm like, wait, why do I care? Like, why do I care about this guy? And then he kills himself.
Yeah, I mean, like even in Mega Man, like you had the B-reel dialogue, during certain fights that really gave you more of the plot than this.
Yeah, absolutely. If this game could have been a little better if they expanded upon that some more.
Well, and I think that's also it goes back to the fact that this was done in like 10 months and then it was also
True.
done by 6 dudes and
Well, and the fact that there's, depending on where the game came out, had
there's
2 different
2
storylines.
different plot lines for whatever
One
reason.
being super involved, and then ours not. I mean, we didn't even get, like, even when the credits roll, there's nothing going on in the credits to advance the story at all or
Yeah,
give
well, I
any
mean,
story.
My
it's-
man Bob's and Dug Nuts in there. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's the end of the game. So
that wraps up that segment, and we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have our final thoughts on Gunstar Heroes. Stick around. Welcome back, everyone. This is our last segment where we share our final thoughts. Cory, what did you
Yes.
think of this game? You never played it as a kid. Here you are as an adult getting to experience it for the first time. Is it worth something to play again? Will you recommend it? What do you think?
Yeah, I really recommend this. I specifically recommend this with a friend because this game is glaringly built for co-op. Like the way the power systems work, the way that you can interact with your friends and throw them, and like there's interactable objects where you can toss enemies around between people. This is something made for you and a buddy, and it's really well done. It's a short title, so it's not like it's a huge time investment. I mean, if you play on easy mode, you could probably bang this out in an hour. It's just a fun, exciting little thing to do, and graphically really well done. The music is fun, and it's really like upbeat, and it's a bullet out of a gun. It's very fast paced. There's no downtime screwing around, and it's easy to pick up and play, and you could just go for it. So I would say like solid 8 out of 10 would recommend.
Chris, what are your thoughts?
8 out of 10. Highly recommend playing it. If you are playing co-op, I'd highly recommend 10 out of 10. This is probably I'm seriously going to hunt somebody down to play this with soon, because this is probably one of the best couch co-op games that I've never played. And when you first recommended the game and said to start playing it, I was like, holy crap, like what's this game like? And you described it to me as like it's kind of like a mix of like Contra and Scott Pilgrim, and you had me hooked on just that alone. And yeah, it didn't disappoint, man. You load in
It
and
is
you
really hard to, sorry to cut you off. But it is really hard to like put this into one.
genre, yeah.
Yeah, like to say like, oh yeah, it's Contra. Like, well, it's because it's got elements of just so many other things going
Yeah.
for it.
And it's great, and it's super. It is uh, Mega Man on speed with Contra and side scrolling, like Double Dragon kind of vibes. Like it is so
Got that
action packed.
Battletoads level of quality, like
Yeah,
entertainment to it.
yeah, and goofy light-hearted comedy, and it's quick, and you're done, and this would be perfect just to knock out with our buddy, and it's just so much fun and action, and just go, boom, like it's great. So yeah, I would actually even solo 10 out of 10, highly recommend this game, and the game super holds up. No chugging, no lag screen, no. You could have
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
really like
oops,
hats off to the
40,
developers.
yeah, 40 people on the screen at the same time, no lag. It's great.
This game has it all, and the developers clearly had a lot of ideas, and they wanted to cram them all into one game. You have your run and gun, you have your brawler, you have your shmup. You have so many aspects, like Cory was saying, of so many different games. And I have loved it for 20 years at this point, and I have never gotten bored of it. And I doubt I ever will. I wish I owned this game physically. Unfortunately, getting a newer box copy right now will run about $150. A loose cart is about 70.
Oh wow,
Well, they only
worth
they
it.
only made 250,000 of them, so
Yeah,
I
fortunately,
wonder
this
what
game.
I
Go
wonder
ahead.
what happened to the rest of them. They made more than that. Like,
nah, man. Like a lot of games just had like a first
A short
run, and
print.
yeah,
Yeah, and that was it.
oh man,
not
that's so
everything
sad.
not
Fortunately,
everything was ET, man.
this game it picked up momentum over the years, and it has been made available on so many different compilations and collections, and it's available on so many modern platforms, and we are so lucky to be able to play it. I highly recommend it to anybody that is listening to this. If you have a Switch, go out and pick up the Sega collections. If you have a PS5, that same collections on PS4 is considerably cheaper, or even on the eShop, it regularly goes on sale for like $7. And
Yeah,
it's like 40 games.
Oh,
those classic collections editions are always worth the money because even if you're only looking at like one game in particular, there's always like great titles that are on there, like Golden Axe and Shinobi and stuff like that. It's like just go get it. Spend the $15.
Oh, and I did check out like right before we started this episode on Xbox. You can get it on Xbox Marketplace for $5, $4.99
There you go.
for this game. So
That's of the time of this recording.
yep, right now, as of 2 hours ago, it's $4.99 on Xbox.
As of December 2022, you go get that.
Yep.
Absolutely. And many of the games that are on that collection we've already covered in the show. So go back and listen to those episodes if you have even the slightest inkling of wanting to pick it up. If you're like, man, maybe Gunstars isn't enough, maybe one of those other games is going to persuade you to buy it.
And like, quick shout out to Treasure, who I don't think they're in business anymore, but well, they might be. I think they're subsidiary of somebody. But shout out to Treasure for making not only this, but also McDonald's Treasure Island Adventure, and they did Wario World for the GameCube. So
They did, and it
yeah.
is such a good game. That game does not get the respect it deserves.
So, like, shout out to Treasure for making wonderful things of my childhood and being a great company.
All right, I think that's going to wrap it up. On our next episode, we won't be playing a game. Instead, we'll be watching episodes of a classic video game cartoon.
We'll tell you right now, swing your hips from side to side, do the buddy, do the Mario.
It's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, and we will share our thoughts as we close out the year. I hope that we see you there. Thank you so much for listening. Chris, Corey, thank you so much for playing this game with me.
Dude, thanks for telling me this game existed. I had no idea.
Thanks for having me. This is a good one.
This was great. Another
until
great
next
example
time, everyone. We've been Superannuated Starman. Thank you.